Hey guys, it's Shannon and John from That DIY Couple.
We are here with another net worth update.
So if you guys have been following along in this series, we are taking you through our net worth from when we graduated from college and law school with tons and tons and tons of debt to how we managed to just right the ship and turn it around for a positive net worth within a few years. So we're taking you year by year, letting you know our assets, our liabilities, and the things that we did to make investments and pay down debt to bring us to today.
If you haven't seen our previous videos in this series, you might want to check them out before you watch this one because they'll provide a little bit of context about how we got to what we're talking about today from where we were a couple years before what we're talking about today.
So here we are. The year is 2016, and I have been in the workplace for 3 years at this point, and you have been in the workplace for 4 years. And here is a picture of us. This is us on vacation in Austria. Yeah, this was a friend's wedding. We had a really nice trip.
This is actually right when we started losing weight. We're still pretty heavy here compared to where we are now, but we had just changed our diet to be one of a plant-focused. I think it was maybe before bright line eating, but we were doing a lot of, we were basically vegetarians at this point.
All right, so let's go to our debts. So our student loans back in 2015 were at $294,400, and in 2016 we made a little bit of progress on those and we paid them down to $285,535. Still a huge amount and a big stressor.
We weren't paying those off at all. We were just paying essentially the minimum that we had to pay to the student loan processors.
Yeah, so our student loans were at a low interest rate, and we were doing what's called slow paying as opposed to paying them off aggressively in favor of making investments. So we were paying our car loan, just like the regular payments as well. It was also at a low interest rate. We brought it down from $19,980 in 2015 to $14,034 in 2016. Again, we wouldn't buy a new car today if we were, in retrospect, we find this was a financial mistake we made. Okay, our credit cards stayed around the same. We were still playing the zero interest, 0% balance transfer game where we felt like we could do better by investing this money and look at it almost like a low interest rate loan. Not a strategy that we necessarily recommend.
So we didn't incur more debt, or very little bit, but we didn't pay down any of the existing debt, although we weren't paying interest per se on the debt, although we'd pay like a balance transfer fee at some point to do that.
Yeah, so our credit card debt remained at around $68,786, which are, just looking at it now, these are just like huge numbers. Again, this is our story. This was not perfect. But we have made significant progress, as you will see as we continue. Okay, our primary residence. In this year, we moved. So, as you guys know, we had been doing what's called house hacking, and we had bought a number of properties already by moving into them, and then renovating them, and then renting them out, and then moving into another one. This time we moved to a home just for ourselves, and we were no longer sharing it with roommates. A little bit further into New Jersey, in a better school district. We bought a foreclosure, cheapest house to sell in our market in the last 10 years, needed a lot of work, but for us this was a big upgrade. So our primary residence mortgage went from $190,500 in 2015 to $236,520 in 2016.
We also acquired a lot more investment properties. If you watch the immediately previous video to this one in the series, you would know that in 2015 we acquired a lot of investment properties. In 2016 we continued doing that. That's going to be reflected on the next slide in the assets part. But our mortgages on our investment properties increased from about almost $400,000 at the end of 2015 to double, about $800,000 at the end of 2016.
That was a very busy year for you in terms of acquisitions. By this point, I think you're full.
So professionally, 2016 was the first year that I was doing real estate full time. So I had transitioned from running a startup from about 2012 until 2015. 2015. And then at the beginning of 2016, I started doing real estate investing full time. So with that, I acquired a lot more properties. We acquired a lot more properties that year.
So as we explained last video, we actually made more money in real estate than we were expecting, and it doesn't have automatic withholdings. You have to be really diligent about sending the government money quarterly when you're like an entrepreneur.
When you're self-employed. Yeah.
And you're self-employed. So we had my salary, which would deduct a certain amount from my taxes for taxes, but for John's salary and the money we make for rental real estate, we have to like proactively send that to the government. So we had a tax liability that we were slowly paying back of $19,500 in 2015, and we had a somewhat small. We withheld more in 2016 but we still had more income than we expected and had to pay back $12,000.
But no, I think actually what happened is that in 2016 we were okay. We withheld the correct amount, but we were on a long repayment plan for the tax thing for like 2 years or something like that.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah, so we paid down some of that.
Okay, so John had a job at a law firm, which he decided not to take several years prior, where they had paid for his transportation costs, and then he got a better opportunity to be an entrepreneur. So we were slowly paying back his law firm for that, and so we took the balance down from $7,000 in 2015 to $5,000 in 2016. We'd also had a loan from my dad to help us get into our, I think, second investment property of $25,000, which we had paid down to $15,000 by 2016.
So the grand total is that at the end of 2015, we had a little over $1 million in debt, and in 2016, we had about $1.4 million in debt.
So that's a big increase in a single year. But if we move to the assets,
it might be valuable to know that about half of that debt, though, is in mortgages for investment properties. So
correct.
Whatever you might think about that.
Yes. Even more than half, $800,000. So, okay. So as we move to the next slide, these are our assets. So in 2015, we were keeping $35,000 in our checking account and savings. And in 2016, we reduced that a little bit to $15,000. I think just because probably at the end of the year when this was taken, we had just closed on a property.
You just bought our new house.
Yeah, so we like to keep that a little bit higher because we have so many investment properties that we like to have a little bit more of a cushion in case, the boiler goes out at 2 different properties at the same time, for example.
Which has happened.
So, with our investment properties...
So as I alluded to before, with the investment properties, we have a lot more debt in the properties, but we also have a lot more value assets in the properties. I don't even know how many we acquired in 2016, but it's 3 or 4 properties. So the value, like the value of the properties that we acquired in 2015 was around $576,000, and by the end of 2016, we estimate it's about $1.3 million. Obviously, that's with mortgages, and you'll see how we net that out in the net worth calculations. But our investment property value increased a lot in 2016.
So that's probably a good time to mention that we're not just buying, move-in ready houses. We're buying really crappy fixer-uppers that have good bones, and then we're doing the work ourselves for the most part at this point to renovate them. Okay, our primary residence, the value in 2015 was $270,000, and the value in 2016 when we moved was $265,000.
So the difference is that we changed houses. So we bought a house that is slightly less valuable than the original house that we were in, but because we got a new mortgage, our debt on that house was greater than the existing mortgage on our first house because we already paid some of that off. So one of the reasons why we tease out primary residence versus investment properties is, as we explained in a lot of our videos, we like to have a really conservative approach to net worth, so we often don't include the value of the primary residence, our primary residence, in our net worth. However, when we when we move from a primary resident to a new house, and then our old house becomes an investment property, that becomes a little bit complicated. So that's what you're seeing. That's the difference between 2015 and 2016 for our primary residence.
So the value of our car went down from $18,000 to $15,000. We use the Kelley Blue Book for these numbers, and the value of our personal property went up from $5,000 to $10,000 as we acquired new things. So in total, the number of assets we had in 2015 was 904,000, and the number of assets we had in 2016 was almost 1.6 million. So that sounds like a lot, but we reconcile it with the massive amounts of debt that we have on the next page.
So on the next page, you can see the traditional calculation of net worth. Traditional meaning all assets included, which means our car and our primary residence and things like that. So 2016 was kind of a banner year for us because it's the first year that by this calculation, we had a positive net worth. So in 2015, we had a negative net worth of 114,000. In 2016, you can see our assets are about 1.6 million. Our debt is about 1.4 million. So subtracting those, we have a net worth of $152,668, which is a positive change of $267,000 in 1 year. And a lot of that is obviously Shannon's salary and my salary. And part of that is that our investments appreciated in value. So all of our real estate investments did really well. This is a time when the real estate market was going up a lot. So we really benefited from 2016. I think we were very frugal. We didn't obviously pay off debt, but for the first time in several years, we didn't incur more debt except for investments. So 2016 was a pretty good year for us. I think it was a year we were starting to really focus a lot on financial frugality and financial freedom, retiring early, things like that.
But not in the traditional way that most people do it, right? So if you look at the next page, this is where we reconcile our assets. We've got several categories here: checking and savings, investment properties, primary residence, value of car, personal property. What's really missing here, and what most people have on their statement of assets if you're in the FIRE community or you're pursuing financial independence, is a big brokerage account. You either have your 401k, your HSA, you have your Roth IRA. We weren't doing any of that. We were not investing in the stock market. We were really, really into real estate at this time. So we felt this was kind of a unique time in history where both the value of homes was still incredibly low coming out of the recession and interest rates were low. So we really wanted to jump on that bandwagon. And I didn't have any sort of matching or anything like that from my employer at this time. So we also took the view that we wanted to build businesses and build wealth, and in retirement we wanted to still have steady streams of income. So we were taking the view that our tax rate in retirement is not necessarily going to be lower than our tax rate now, and if things go well for us, it'll in fact be higher because we'll have more and more streams of passive income. So for many reasons, we were prioritizing investing in real estate, which helped with deductions come tax time to lower my very high actively earned income. Because John was a full-time investment professional, we could deduct any losses. Anyways, so our assets look different than probably most people you see. So in 26, so what we do is we reconcile our assets, like John said. We don't count the value of our primary residence, our car, or our personal property when we're calculating our net worth, because we don't want to liquidate those things in an emergency situation. We want to hang on to those things. So
yeah, the change, if you exclude those things, as we did also in 2015, our net worth, our assets, using our conservative calculation, were about 600,000, and in 2016 they were about 1.3 million. Again, that's almost entirely because we bought a bunch of investment properties in 2016. So if you go to the next slide, which is our net worth using our conservative calculations for our assets, we still have a negative net worth, but not as negative as it was in 2015. In 2015, our net worth was about negative 400,000. In 2016, with our recalculated assets, but including the debt still, we have a negative net worth of 137,000, which is a positive change of 270,000. So moving in the right direction, but by our calculations, still a negative net worth.
And this is probably as conservative as you can get when it comes to calculating net worth, because we're not counting the value of our primary residence, but we are counting the debt, because the
same is true with the car, for example. Yeah.
Right, because we think that we would still in a really bad, situation where we really have to liquidate everything that we have. We would still want to continue paying those. We wouldn't want to lose our house. We wouldn't want to lose our car.
Right.
So here's a graph of our traditional net worth over time, you can see the assets and the liabilities climbing, and then down below you can see for the first time in 2016 our net worth goes above zero, and that was exciting. But if we look at it from the conservative lens that we typically do like to look at it from, on the next page you see our conservative net worth over time. Still the assets and the liabilities are climbing, but the net worth is still below zero.
So that's it for this time. We have a lot more that happened between 2016 and today, which is almost the end of 2019. So luckily for us, we started keeping track of this a lot more consistently. Some of the data that we have before about 2016 was just guessing and trying to figure out where we're at.
Looking at very old statements and things like that.
Yeah, but in 2017, definitely 2018, and then definitely this year, we've been tracking it very, very closely. So I'm excited to share that with you. We've been working really hard on recompiling this information. Stay tuned for our next episode in this series. And until then,
do well and always make things better.
Oh.